Rhythm and balance are key issues from a good hurdler to a great hurdler. Maintaining that balance, maintaining that rhythm, not scrubbing speed off. Hey everyone, Coach Wheeler here. I have parents and athletes and coaches are asking me, what do you look for when you're watching a hurdler? I mean, how do you know what they're doing wrong before you know what they're doing right? What do you need to focus on first? What do you need to focus on more? And all athletes are going to be different when they're crossing hurdles, when they're going to start the first hurdle, when they're coming off of the hurdle, their sprint rhythm in between. All hurdlers are going to be different. So we need to kind of focus on what you see at first. But when I do this, I look at three very important things. And those are going to be angles. And there are three groups of angles that are very specified for what I see and what I look at when I start watching hurdlers cross hurdles. And I'm going to get into these three. One is very controversial. Most of you coaches are probably going to say that's not right, that's not what I've been taught, that's not what I've learned. But I have noticed through time, and as I start to work with my hurdlers in the past, I've been coaching for 34 years, but specifically in the past, I would say 8 to 10 years, I've really started to notice the difference here, and I'll kind of point that out. But the three things that we want to look at when we're talking about hurdlers are going to be, the first group is going to be that wrist, elbow to shoulder angles, and the opening up of those angles on top of the hurdle. And that's going to be on both sides. So you're looking at your wrap arm side, and then as I call it, the freeze arm side, and I'll get into that very specifically. The other one is going to be the ankle, knee to hip, and we're going to talk about the lead leg specifically, and then we'll talk about the trail leg specifically, and those angles from the ankle to the knee to the hip. And then the final one that I'm going to touch base on is going to be that shoulder, hip, and knee angle. And that's going to be your big angle. That's your press into the hurdle, or your attack angle as you start to go in, how long you hold that angle, and when you open up on top and open that angle on top of the hurdle. So those are going to be the three main ones that I'm going to talk about specifically. Okay, so that first angle we're going to talk about is going to be a wrist to elbow to shoulder angle. And we're going to talk about both sides. So we're going to talk about the wrist here to the elbow here, and the shoulder to the elbow. So this is going to be the first angle that we're going to talk about, and this is going to be on what I call the free side. A lot of coaches don't necessarily agree with it. They think that the hurdler should run over the hurdle like in a walking or running motion with that hand coming back. I want to keep that hand at least the hip, if not up at the thigh. And you can see that Grant Holloway here has that hand actually right next to the thigh, and he actually touches the side of his leg when he's crossing on top of the hurdle. And what he's doing here is very different than the gentleman on this side, and you can see that his hand is by his hip here. The elbow is further away from the body, so we can see a lot more light than what we can see here. And again, that hand is back by the hip, and it's not up here by the thigh, and we want to get that wrist up here by the thigh, and there's a very specific reason again why we want to do that. Let me just kind of get rid of some of these here. So the reason why I want that hand to be by the wrist, and you can see it here, is we want everything to be parallel with the stick. So crossing over the top of the stick, we want our shoulders to be parallel with that stick. And look at this. Grant's shoulders are parallel with the stick. And this gentleman's here is rising up above. Now, to be fair, his wrap arm is already in the wrap position, which means the hand is in front of the face, the elbow is straight out, and Grant is past that. So his angle, shoulder to elbow and elbow to back of shoulder, is closed. Although he's holding this away, he's probably at a 90-degree angle on this side. But again, this is the positioning of where he's at. And Grant's arm was in this position here when the hand was in front of the face as well. So, and I'm sure he had a 90-degree angle as well. When you're in this position, it's going to throw that shoulder, just depending on how aggressive you are, a little bit forward. And obviously he is strong enough to maintain that parallel position on top of the hurdle. This is really actually very good. I'd be very happy if my hurdlers could maintain this. Unfortunately, at the level that we're at, the strength of the abdominals and the intercostals here are going to make a big difference on holding this into position, and your spine erectors, which are going to be in the back. So all of those are keeping the shoulders within a very good positioning on top. But this is really what we want, and this is the difference between the small increments of elite hurdling that we're looking at. And again, I don't train my hurdlers to be proficient. I want them to be the best that they can, and to do that, I try to coach them to be the best that they can. So with this positioning here, now Grant has pulled this angle open with the wrist. Now he's pulled it down here, and he's going to sweep the knee as the knee comes up over the top of the hurdle. So he'll sweep this wrist over the top, and this gentleman, I'm sure, will do the same exact thing. He'll open up, sweep the knee, and then as this knee comes up, that'll be basically the same type of position. So that's something that we want to keep in mind when we're watching those hurdlers. We want to make sure that they're sweeping that knee with that wrist, and that movement happens specifically with the wrist. It does not happen with the elbow, and a lot of young athletes tend to pull with the elbow. Let me get a different cursor out here. So they tend to pull with the elbow in this direction, back and away from the body. And that is not what we want to have happen. We want all of the movement to initiate with the wrist down and away over the top of the trail leg. And the reason I want that to happen is if we pull here with the elbow, we end up over rotating on top just because of the aggressiveness with the elbow and the wrap. As the wrist comes through and the elbow is pulled back, it opens up the wrap arm, and it forces the shoulders to rotate more. And that's why you find young hurdlers that are coming off of the hurdle, that they're over rotated up top. And now to recover from that, they have to swing back across the opposite side of the body to rebalance themselves. And now they're coming up the track side to side to side instead of coming up the track straight up the track, or up the track as these guys are here. So that's going to be very, very important as well. So we want to initiate any movement that we have is going to be with the wrist here. And the other part of it is this elbow is going to be kind of immobilized. And when let's go back to the line here. And when this wrist opens up, when the wrist opens up from here to here, the elbow is going to be immobilized. Now it is going to travel, and what I mean by travel, it's going to move as the wrists move, but the wrist is going to be the initiation of the movement. Now we want to make sure that we're not focused on moving that elbow. Okay, so that's going to be the two angles. So we're looking at the freeze side, and the freeze side punches up off of the top of up off of the hurdle. When the hips cross the hurdle, this hand is going to punch back up, but you're going to want to maintain that in that position for that period of time. And then this wrist here is going to pull down over the trail leg, so the wrap arm is going to be up in this position, and it's going to pull here. So this angle will open up as well. So those are the angles that I'm talking about specifically on either side. So the wrap arm side, like here, and the freeze arm side, which is going to be this side over here. So I've got another really quick picture here of the progression over the top of the hurdle. We're still talking about Grant, but we're going to talk about the lead leg and the trail leg, and I want to talk about the trail leg specifically and the hip. Let me get this up here. It's going to be the hip to the knee, and then the knee to the ankle. So this is what I want to talk about on this one, but I do want you to notice that as his hips are crossing that hurdle, not only is he still holding his press, one, but secondly, this angle is opened up. As he sweeps the wrist over the top of the knee, he's going to sweep it back this way. And again, the elbow will stay immobilized. It won't move, but it will travel specifically as the wrist travels, or as you pull the wrist over, the elbow will travel. And then notice this. His hand is still by his thigh, even as he's crossing over the top. Now, once those hips clear the hurdle and he starts to open up on top, he is going to punch very aggressively up. And that is going to drive that knee even harder up over the top of the hurdle. So you want to drive that knee into the armpit, which is going to be here. That's going to eliminate any opportunities for that heel to flick up. One, that you've noticed sometimes, you might have some young hurdlers that when they go over, their heel tends to rise higher than their knee, and that's a common mistake. So, and how you eliminate that is by making sure and just telling the athlete, your coaching cue is going to be drive the knee into the armpit, and that will eliminate any of that flick up of the heel, because they'll stop focusing on driving the heel over, and they'll start focusing on the hip, on the knee, and then again, that knee is going to drive up into the armpit here. So that's going to be a very important part of it. Now, something that I do want you to notice here that is very prevalent and obvious, and this is the controversial part that I was talking about, is going to be this angle between the heel and the butt. Now, most coaches tell their athletes to tuck that heel under the butt and snap down. And yes, you want to snap down, but I tell my athletes to keep this open, this angle open, at a 90-degree angle. I want to keep it as far open as I possibly can. Now, no further than a 90-degree angle. I want it to be a 90-degree angle. Okay? And the reason why I do that is that increases more rotation in the hip. If we're driving the knee into the armpit, it forces more rotation into the hip, and we keep this angle open for two reasons. It's going to take fraction of time, but it will take time for you to drive the heel under the butt and then extend it back down as you start to cross that hurdle. And if we keep it immobilized in this position at a 90-degree angle, then when you rotate that knee through, you are actually getting a lot more force here in the leg. You're going to get a lot more force down into the ground. And this is really important because this is the same principle as coming out of the blocks. When you come off of the hurdle, and I'll bring up another video here and show this to you. Let me just clean this up so I can show this. But we want this to rotate back through and here. So I want to pop back to this picture again here. And the reason why is because we've got two different angles on one side, and that's going to be the drive knee. Now I want my athletes to drive this, so we're talking about the hip, and let me do this, let me get this back up here real quick. We're talking again the hip to the knee, and then the knee down to the ankle. And this is where we have our tuck. This ankle should tuck up under the butt as you drive the knee up over the top past 90 degrees, and you can see in this picture here, Grant actually has his knee just a little bit higher than 90 degrees. It's going to be, we don't want the leg to come straight out. We want that a small bend in the leg there. We don't want a straight leg. So I always tell my athletes, drive the knee to the hurdle and cast the tibular aspect, which is going to be this section of the leg right here. And it's just drive the knee, heel to the hurdle. Drive the knee, heel to the hurdle. And that's what I tell my athletes. So I want them to drive that knee aggressively as they press up. But the other big angle that we're also talking about is going to be that, let me get rid of these so you can see it, is going to be the knee to hip and then the hip to shoulder. And this is going to be effective when we're coming across the hurdle. So we want a very, very aggressive, what I call close the book. This is the spine of the book here. And you close the book, which means you force your shoulders into your knee as you cross the hurdle. And I like to tell the kids that think of there as a circle or a hole on top of the hurdle. And not only is the hurdle is the circle a plane, but it's also cylindrical, so it has depth to it. And what you want to do is push yourself into that hole and hold yourself or hold that press until your hips come off of the stick or just as they're off of the stick, and then you're allowed to open up yourself past the hole. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to confuse anybody. So we're going through this hole that's on top of the circle. The hole is cylindrical, and you have to pass through it before your head can rise up and your hips drop off. And that's how I want my athletes to be, or to hold on top of that stick. Now, this is very, very difficult in competition. And it takes a ton of practice to learn how to be patient on top of the hurdle. And I have a really short video. I'm going to show you what I'm talking specifically about this. In competition mode, and I'm sure that if you're coaching young athletes or inexperienced athletes, they tend to open up too soon on top of the hurdle. And that's when they start to rip their knees and shins and ankles apart, because they're starting to drop their hips. When they open, their hips are going to drop down, and when their hips drop down, their leg drops down, and now you've got your knee or your shin or your ankle are going to be smacking on top of this hurdle. That's the first cause of it. The second cause of it is going to be just not driving that knee into the armpit. So the first thing we want to recognize when they're crossing the hurdle is whether or not they're driving the knee into the armpit, one. And then if they are driving the knee and they're still hitting it, then they're just opening up too soon on top of the hurdle, and their butt's dropping on it, and that's causing all of the situation where your shins or knees or ankles are smacking the heck out of the hurdle. But that will eliminate any of that touching the hurdle. I have some short hurdlers, 5'9", 5'10". I had one that was second in the nation by 0.2 of a second, lost by 0.2 of a second indoors, and he was 5'8", and he smacked every hurdle, but he smacked it right here on his hamstring. So if your lower glute, this area here, or your hamstring are touching the hurdle, that's the spot that you want to, if they're going to dump down on top of the hurdle, that's where you want it to be. You don't want it to be on the shin, you don't want it to be at the heel, you definitely don't want it to be at the knee. So if anything past that very upper hamstring, hind end, glute area is where you want to hit. So it kind of covered all the angles. So we've got the shoulder, hip, knee, we've got the shoulder, elbow, wrist, and we've got it on both sides here, and you can see these angles here on both sides, and that's the angles that I look for on on the upper body side. And then this is the third angle, which is going to be this big press. And then it's going to be, that's going to be the second angle is the big press. The third angle is going to be the tibular aspect here to the knee, and then the knee to the hip, and how much past 90 we're driving that. And then this leg is going to be drive up into the armpit in this position here, but we want to keep this foot open in the back, and that's going to be at a 90-degree angle, and rotate as a 90-degree angle from this hip in this rotation here. So hopefully that helps a little bit of what I look at when I'm looking at the angles. And again, I just found this picture as well, and this is actually a little bit better picture of showing what happens off of the hurdle, off of touchdown. You know, this is the same principle as coming out of the blocks. You want that front foot in the block to be in that pedal as long as possible. That way you're overcoming inertia. And you can see that he has, stick up, he has this angle open up right here, and that's really what we want to have happen, is to keep that angle open the whole time pressing through. But again, he's getting a big punch up this direction. That's driving that knee over the top. And as he pushes forward and he drives down, excuse me, with the ankle, these hips are going to travel up over the top. So when he has maximum force in this spot here, can't see it because of the color, those hips will travel to that point, and he'll be right on top of his hips. And again, he does a really good job of forcing his hips up, so we've got a straight line from the ankle to the knee to the hip here, which is very pretty. Another thing that I've noticed is, look at the tuck here. It's tucked up a little bit more than I would like, and then as you can see in this one here, as he's driving off, he's really got that leg tucked up under here, and you know, he's not. What he's going to do is drive this foot down, and it's going to be further in. It's not going to have. It's going to be right in front of, when this foot has touchdown here. It's going to be right in front of the hurdle of the other foot. Maybe out in front just a little bit, maybe in this area here, but he's not going to get that long period of force into the track from this position, and he's also not going to be able to be in the proper sprint position, because that leg on this side here is going to stay back as he comes through, and I promise you, if Grant Holloway had this angle here and that leg off of here, he wouldn't get the amount of push he would, and he wouldn't have the speed in between the hurdles that he does. There's a very specific reason why this guy is the best in the world. And these are some of the angles that if you watch him race or look at him compared to other hurdlers that you're going to notice. The two main things that he does better than anybody else is his start to first hurdle. He never looks for the hurdle until he gets to his fifth stride, so he holds his attack angle, one, and then secondly, he keeps his angles open big on top of the hurdle. And most coaches don't like that. They want everything to be short, tight, and quick. And short, tight, and quick is quick, yes, but it's just quick. It's not strong and powerful, and that's really what we're looking for, is getting that power and strength and not scrubbing speed off. And that's what I look for. So let's jump over to my video here. Okay, so I have a video here of one of my former athletes, an All-American at Indiana Tech. I want to show all of the angles together here. He was a really good hurdler, solid, but he's going to make some mistakes here, and I want to kind of point them out, but I want you guys to kind of see some of the things that I'm talking about. So let's talk about the big angle first, going to be the shoulder to hip to knee, and let's watch him drive through. So he presses his shoulders in, drives the knee up. He does not extend the foot out totally. There's a small bend in the knee there, and just casts the tibular aspect, the ankle, to the stick, and then drops it down, and you can see the opposite side, that angle is open. The foot doesn't tuck underneath the butt. It stays away, and this is what I'm talking about when he has touchdown off of the hurdle. He's holding his press on top. He's still maintaining that press, and that's going to drop that parabola of the hip on top of the stick. And then when he has touchdown, here, see how open that angle is in this section here? Let me get this going, and I can show you. So he is got that leg away and is not tucked up under the butt here. And the reason why it's controversial is because coaches tell their athletes, get that heel under the butt because it's quick, and quick isn't fast. Quick is just quick. It's not powerful. You want to be powerful and strong. But what's happening is he's got touchdown here, and he's rotating bigger, and there's a lot more force into the track in this direction. And what ends up happening is it's propel his hips forward faster, and that's really what we want to have happen. And you can see how that happens. And then when he gets touchdown on the opposite leg, it's right underneath the hip. Now, if you're going to be really, really technical here, I want to have that hip go to the knee, from the ankle to the knee to the hip to be straight up, and there's a slight collapse in there, which he's losing speed on. But so that's kind of what we're looking at there. But I want to make sure that you guys are recognizing that when he has touchdown, the hip travels, and when it travels forward, and then that opposite side jams underneath the hip there, and now he's not losing any speed. So again, cut step, drives the hips and the shoulders forward, drives the knee past 90, cast to the stick with the elbow. Free side hand is at the side of the hip or at the thigh. Wrap arm pulls down over the trail leg. He keeps that opposite side open, drives the knee forward into the armpit. Look at those shoulders, they're straight. He's on touchdown, and he has a big, big sweep here, and that is a ton of force into the track here. He's applying a ton of force. Now watch this other foot come down here. It's going to come down straight, and his hips will travel to that point. Watch this. Boom, right up underneath the hip. So I'm not telling him to rotate and be obnoxiously big and reach out in front of the hip. He's still driving it underneath the hip. And that's really, really important part of what I'm trying to explain here. So one more time, we'll go back to the other hurdle here, and I will demonstrate. So watch those angles, watch those marks. Let's slow it down to as slow as we can get it here, and watch those lines that we've created here. So drive down under the thigh, cast the tibular aspect, wrap arm up, free side at the thigh, down into the ground, drives forward, and that foot comes down under the hip. Now he is in a full sprint pattern here, and again we're going to chop step, drive the shoulders, free side, wrap arm, pulls over the trail, drives down underneath the hip, big sweep, and right underneath the hip again. So that's what we're talking about when I'm talking about those angles on the opposite side. So it's pretty controversial, I know. A lot of coaches are gonna poo-poo it and say, no, that's not how it's supposed to be done. But this works for us, and I'm not changing it. And I totally 1,000% trust that larger sweep and keeping that ankle away from the butt on that free side is allowing him to stay open, or is allowing that force to be greater and those hips to travel faster forward. So that's all I got there. I hope you guys found that interesting. I hope that helps some people out, coaches, athletes, parents. If you guys have questions, I'm really interested to get some feedback from you on the video here. So just talk down at the bottom, respond in the comments section down there. I'm really interested to hear. And again, to help me get this information out to people, I'd really like for everybody to like and subscribe and do the thing. And hopefully we can get this generated where we can really help some other coaches out and some athletes and parents, because I'm not stopping with this, and I want to get out as much as quality information I can to hurdle coaches out there that we can. So I appreciate your time. Let me know again what you think of this video, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good day.